Today's insight is from our executive coach, Gordon. 10 minutes, over to you, sir.
Right, so for those of you who did pick up earlier or didn't pick up earlier, the name of my practice is Peak to Peak, and my focus is on coaching people between the waves of activity that go on during a career, during a company's lifetime, and with everything from redundancy through retirement, through changing jobs, changing countries, um, and being made redundant, because I've kind of experienced it all firsthand and been part of managing some of that as well over the time. Um, so what I come down to is, why do we do the stuff that we do? We've just heard we've all got different things that we do. How did we get into that? And what drove us there? So the theme of this presentation is the very simple question, why? Yeah, Keith's grinning already. Why? Yeah, just a simple three-letter question. Yeah. Question is, why do we do the stuff that we do? What is it that makes us tick? What do we get out of it? What motivates us? What values are we realizing? What emotional strengths are we feeding? Um, and I decided the easiest way to do this was to explore myself a little bit, because I can't really discuss specific clients, because that would be breaking my terms of the way I engage with clients and my values. So I use myself as an illustration of the ideas I'm talking about. And I have to make a confession. So I need to confess to Father Keith and Sister Brecker that since the age of 50, I've developed a habit of strapping large quantities of lead to my waist, a cylinder onto the back of my shoulders, and throwing myself backwards out of boats. Yes, I'm afraid I am a scuba diver, and I do it quite regularly, quite a lot. This was taken about 4 years after I initially qualified. First trip I'd ever made to the Red Sea. And it's probably the best representation of me as diving, because you can see the hair, so it's clearly me. And as my wife said, that aggressive look in your eye, which I found quite disheartening, really. But when I then said, well, okay, so I'm doing this, other people do other silly things. You know, I fall backwards out of a boat, but people drive cars very, very fast, round tracks, hopefully round tracks. Um, Other folks strap bits of wood to their feet and throw themselves down a mountain on snow. I couldn't cope with that because I've got no control. How do I stop the damn thing? And other people, well, they like to attach a hanky to their backs and drop out of aeroplanes. And some people do all of these things. But the interesting thing is, why are they doing it? It's not just the adrenaline. Some people like the challenge of the coordination of driving very fast. I know that one of my good friends just likes the physicality of being on skis, and I couldn't do it. I know I couldn't do it. So when you come to asking those kind of questions, I can only relate them back to my own situation with diving. So why do I do it? Well, now that, yes, you see, Keith, the towel's there. I promised it would be. For those who don't know, yeah, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, finding your towel, and therefore being in control of what's going on with yourself in your life, in your career, and everything else, is the theme that I use in most of my marketing. But this is the physical challenge. Now that I'm approaching the ripe old age of 40-ish, I've started to do a lot more exercise because I've realized I need to look after the body more. So I stopped smoking 2 years ago. Yeah, I know, stupid, isn't it? But I'm off diving for 10 days in a couple of weeks' time. And I think I know I had to do something about my fitness. So I now have a 45-minute regime every morning where I work on those two horrible devices, cross trainer and step machine, just to get exercise. Then I stretch my back to put it back in place, because otherwise my osteopath tells me I'll have to go and see a chiropractor, and it's a bit worrying. But that's one of my values now. I know I need to keep myself fit for a whole variety of reasons. The other thing for me with diving is the intellectual challenge. you have to know what you're doing underwater. And those are just some of the certifications and courses that I've had done over the years. And in fact, I'm about to do another course on mixed gas diving, which is something I'm going to play with on this next trip to the Maldives. But the other thing is the intellectual challenge is this one. Not a lot of people know I have 2 degrees in biology. First, it was an applied biology degree where I focused on ecology, and the second one was freshwater biology. And I do dive in freshwater in the UK. And if you've never had tadpoles swimming between your fingers, you have not lived, my friend. You just have no idea. When it happened, my dive buddy spat his reg out. He was laughing so much because he could see the pure joy that I was getting with these little black things running going between my fingers. But this is the biology. I can sit and watch a coral reef forever. I can watch turtles, or in fact, I have seen a dugong and I have seen manta ray, and I hope to see more manta ray on this next trip. I can watch the biology for hours, as some of my dive buddies would attest. It's a big thing for me. It's just intellectually fascinating. But there's also the people side. Most of you know who've seen me pitch before. I am a very people-focused person. And that bunch of miscreants up there, and you can see they're divers because they're all rehydrating. There's at least 10 bottles of Cobra on that table. And we do rehydrate regularly. That's the regular curry evening. But also there are 3 people plus myself on the boat who dive the Rock. The Rock is the most southerly point on the British Isles, just off the Scilly Islands. You don't get to dive it very often. There's a wreck, well, there's 2 or 3 wrecks down there. But because of the nature of the sea at that point, you might only get 1 dive a month on it. And the big thing is when you go down the seas in one way, when you hit the surface after you finish the dive, you don't know what the sea's going to be doing. And in fact, on that day, it was really choppy as we came up, and then it calmed back down again. But 3 of those guys I still see regularly. 2 of them are in the photograph. There's a load of other people in that photograph are going to the Maldives. It's the camaraderie and the dopamine, the serotonin of being in a group and sharing and doing stuff together. I've got 2 minutes left. So that's why I dive. People, physical challenge, intellectual challenge, and I do give a bit back because I often get asked to help less experienced divers. Other people dive for other reasons. I don't do deep diving. People want to go down to see the German fleet in Scapa Flow. You spend as much time decompressing on the way back up again as you spend on the dive. They take magnetic chess with them. No, not for me. My wife loves gadgets. When she dives, she's got all kinds of stuff on her kit. I keep it simple. I don't like penetrating wrecks, lining in and lining out, although I have supported people doing it. And caves are just more scary than ever. I want to be able to see my route to the surface. But people do things for different things. So the question is, why do you do your stuff? What's driving your behavior? If you sat down, what do you consider to be your 3 main drivers? What gets you out of bed? What gets you kicking? What gets you going? Now, if you're thinking about that, there are a couple of simple questions that you might want to consider. You might want to write these down because they're a bit deep, a bit heavy. First one is, who am I when I'm doing what I do? And then the second one flips it. What do I do when I'm being who I am? And there's a gap between those 2. And that's the space I like to work in with clients, because that's where people learn more about themselves, what drives them, and why they're projecting a different persona to the person they actually are. And I know that I did that in my professional career. And I can tell you the gap for me now is a lot smaller, because I kind of do what I am, and that's who I am. But it's an interesting couple of reflective questions. I've got about seconds to go, so just time to put my contact details up on the final slide. If you want to have a conversation, drop me a line. My stuff's already in the chat, or go and have a look at my website, peak2peakcoaching.co.uk. And thanks very much. Over to you, Keith.